Welcome back to Mass Appeal. Letters of recommendations. Why do colleges want them? How should they be written? And should parents pay close attention? Here to discuss these topics and talk about these questions, we have Paul HEMPHILL. He's an author, a college admissions expert. So what are these, first of all, letters of recommendation? Because we know them from the job market, but what are they as they pertain to students?
Well, the colleges are looking for the answers to two questions. The first question is, what's in it for us if we accept you? Well, the student typically answers that question with their test scores, their grades, their extracurricular activities, and an interview if the college requires one. But the second question is, well, who are you? We know what kind of an academic superstar that you are, but we don't know who you are as a person. So could you please get a teacher and a guidance counselor to advocate for you? So I always suggest to the student that you need to go to two teachers, because typically an unreliable source of advocacy comes from the guidance counselor. In most cases, the guidance counselor doesn't even know the student.
Because they have hundreds and hundreds of students.
Exactly. So I suggest that the student email the college and say, how can you rely on a letter of recommendation from someone who doesn't even know me? Can I get a second teacher to write the letter? And so colleges really like the fact that the student is actually challenging the requirement.
Yeah, because you're right. At its face, a guidance counselor knows very little about students, depending on their relationship with them. But yeah, coaches, parents, teachers, so many people know that student much better and color in that picture of what the student's all about.
That's correct.
Now, how does a student go about doing it? I know I've asked for letters of recommendation before for jobs, and it's tricky sometimes to ask someone to do that, to go out on a limb for you. How does a student go about doing it?
Well, a student can walk up to a teacher and quote Shakespeare right from the start, saying, brevity is the soul of wit. And so what I would like you to do is, instead of writing an entire page of cliches and platitudes, which the colleges are used to seeing, could you write a paragraph that just highlights one character trait that you admire in me? Like, for example, let's say if you thought I was a very persistent student, that I come after class all the time when I can't understand a problem, I'd like you to write about that element of persistence, that character trait. So that's really all the colleges are looking for, and if you can write that in 5 lines, I'd really appreciate it.
That's a great point, because there are so many cliches that you see on these, and they know that, I mean, the college counselors, they're no dummies. They know it's coming.
Oh, absolutely they do. And so we have to guard against that so you don't look like everybody else, because I always say to the student, you have to stand out amongst other applicants, and in order to do that, part of that process is to have a very short letter of recommendation.
It's tricky for the student, too, to go up to someone and say, hey, I would love you to write a recommendation letter for me. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Do you remember that time I stayed late? It's difficult to do that, to kind of nudge them in the right direction.
Well, it is, and what happens is that the teacher may come back and say, you know, I really don't know what to write. So, and many teachers will say to the student, would you please write the letter for me, and I'll just tweak it a little bit, knowing what I know about you, I'll sign it and I'll submit it for you.
Now, we all know about the parent who wants to help, and it's no fault of their own. They just want the best for their son or daughter. What's the parent's role in the letter of recommendation?
Well, oftentimes colleges will ask the parent to write what they call a brag sheet. And that can be very enlightening, because it tells the college what kind of values these parents had taught this student. And by contrast, Dartmouth College will ask not the parent to write the brag sheet, but will ask a fellow student.
Great idea.
To write that brag sheet.
So you just want it's someone to, because you're right, no parent's going to put down their kids. They're going to give them the most flowery rendition of the truth possible.
But again, the requirement ought to be as brief as possible, talk about one character trait, and that's exactly the substance that the colleges will appreciate.
Now, what else do parents need to know? Is there anything else?
Yes, the student should ask, after the letter of recommendation has been asked for, kind of on the way out the door, say to the teacher, oh, by the way, could I have a copy of that letter at graduation time? Because they will not give you a copy of that letter in advance of the application. That question puts the teacher on notice not to say anything that's harmful to the student. Let me give you an example. About 4 years ago, I had a student who got almost perfect SAT scores at the beginning of his senior year. So he decided that he didn't have to do his homework anymore. And so one of his teachers said in his recommendation letter, this student is very bright, he's brilliant, but he's not cooperative and doesn't do his homework. 10 of the colleges to which he applied, 9 of them said no.
That's why you need to get that letter in advance, just to make sure all is on the up and up.
That's right.
Paul, excellent tips as always.
Good to see you again.
Thank you for stopping by.